Who was your saddest celebrity encounter? I got cock-blocked by Brad Pitt. I was an extra in World War Z and I met this girl there and we were talking and all was great until one time Brad Pitt walks by. Was very friendly to her. Totally blanked me. His stunt double was a cool dude though. I've met Conan O'Brien twice. The first time was awesome. My wife and I were visiting NYC for our anniversary and went to see his show. Back when he was still doing late night at NBC, the guy that warmed the crowd up before Conan came out asked if it was anyone's birthday or anniversary, and I spoke up and said we were visiting for ours. When Conan came out, he came right up to us to shake our hands and give us a little present. A few years later, we went to go see his show when he was touring in between The Tonight Show mess and his TBS show. We were taking a walk around the theater right when his bus happened to pull up, and he came to meet us and a few other fans that were there at the time. He was so visibly exhausted and gaunt looking. After everything that he'd gone through, I could totally understand. He still talked with everyone for a few minutes and went on to do a fun show with his band later that night though. This is more embarrassing for me. 4 AM in an airport, I ran into Adam Savage. Strike 1. Don't talk to anyone in an airport at 4 AM. They're just as delirious and tired as you are. Strike 2. Don't frick up and say his co-host's name when you try to say hi. Bonus. He tweeted about 5 minutes later complaining about idiots in airports trying to say hi by calling him Jamie. Learn from my mistake. Nichelle Nichols. Met her at a con literally a matter of hours after Leonard Nimoy passed away last year. You could tell she wasn't all there in her panel, because her answers to any question would quickly turn into ramblings about her ventures in high school and her early singing career. I'm not sure if it was her age, the grief, or some combination of both, but it was really depressing. Since some people are wondering, yes, it was Pensacon 2015. I saw Stephen King while getting some food in Exeter, NH once. I didn't walk up to him and saw anything, but I saw 2 or 3 people following him trying to get him to talk to them, which looked annoying to deal with. Poor guy. I don't know if anyone outside the UK will know who this is, but I performed at a festival where one of my childhood heroes, Craig Charles, was jing. I was a massive Red Dwarf fan, so I was so excited to meet him. Seeing him backstage, he was just this middle-aged guy in sunglasses and a leather jacket trying to hang out with all these young cool bands who didn't know or care who he was. That was kind of sad. Saw his jazz band perform in Bristol a couple of years back. He was so freaked up he attacked a poster of himself, then a bouncer. Was a weird night. I was on Jeopardy a few years ago, and was pretty disappointed to learn that the only time you see Alex Trebek is while you're on stage taping the show. He's just very dry and straightforward, not rude, but extremely businesslike. Richard Kiel aka Jaws from the 007 films. It was a shock to see how deteriorated he looked, riding a scooter because his legs were done, hands shaking, half blind, still signed every DVD and posed for every photo. Passed away 2 weeks after that. I also pee off Joe Edgerton because he didn't like my question, but that's more funny than sad. Quite a few of the guys I work with on events all knew him quite well. He literally kept working until the day he died because it made him happy. So yeah, while it's quite sad to see someone like that, you would have been a big part of why he never wanted to stop, and I think that's quite a nice thing. I met Gilbert Gottfried at a convention, and there was nobody in his line, so we walked right up. He was very nice and soft spoken, and I think we made his day. He was fairly close to becoming a huge star for a while, and now I bet most of those convention goers don't know anything about him. Gilbert is great. He's a rarity in that, while the public thinks he's a bit cheesy and a hack, he's very loved by other comedians. 99% of the time, it's the other way around. Well, I once wanted to get Daryl Hannah's autograph for my friend who had been crushing on her since forever. I couldn't summon up my courage to approach her directly, so I just asked the dude sitting next to her. He put me off very politely. I went back to my friends empty-handed and was complimentary of Mr. Nobody's manners. They told me I'd just asked JFK Jr. for Daryl's autograph. I seem to have confused some folks for playing fast and loose with the meaning of sad. I meant that the encounter made me out to be pretty lame. Lame for being too intimidated to just be direct and ask her, and for being so dopey I didn't even realize that the person I had the guts to ask was, in his own way, just as famous. Becomes even sadder in retrospect. I was at a cheese shop in the West Village. I realize how douchey this sounds when I noticed James Spader was at the counter. I was in the middle of a massive Boston legal binge at the time and absolutely adored his work. So I went to the counter and started looking at the cheese. This is casual. It's a cheese shop for frick's sake. He was sampling cheeses and I just looked at this man whose work I so admired and respected and said, "How's the Gouda? Apparently it's delicious." Stupid. A S-faced Andy Dong tried to molest my male friend on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, so that was more disturbing than sad. I once ran into Andy Dong at a storage facility in Hollywood. He was wandering around with a giant pair of bolt cutters. I was scared. I was able to interview Christy Mack. This was about a month before her ex-boyfriend and MMA fighter beat the crap out of her. She must be 110 pounds tops. Her agent and I were talking when she was signing autographs and he told me about how he wants her to get away from her boyfriend. He sure was right, and clearly knew something well before TMZ broke the story. Keira Knightley and her +1 were at a bar theater TV studio I used to work at. My manager told me to take a bowl of olives outside to her table. My hands were shaking so hard. She's even more beautiful in real life. I tripped on the leg of the table before hers and landed right on my face. She was ridiculously nice about it. I was mortified. 2 of my colleagues were on a break a few tables over and I never heard the end of it. Lost Prophets were the first band my sister really liked and Ian Watkins used to message my sister on Facebook. I remember thinking what a cool guy, messaging his 12-year-old fans, but then the news came out and turned that memory sour. Why would that be a bad memory? Searches Wikipedia. Oh okay. DMX very graciously held a door open for me recently. It was a nice encounter until I saw in the news the next day that he had been found unconscious in the parking lot later that evening. Yeah, DMX has been in a bit of a tailspin for a while now. Really sad. Dude was such a great and talented rapper and made some classics. Went and saw Steve-O do his stand-up tour. After his show, he said he would meet everybody there. We waited in line, and he was being super nice, laughing and taking pictures with everyone. Right before we got to the stage, some fat, redneck butthole told him that he was funnier back when he was on drugs. It killed his whole vibe. When we got to him, he just took a picture with us and said thanks for coming. But he was clearly in a bad mood. I don't blame him at all. He was still extremely nice, but he was clearly irritated. It was cool that he still met us and took a picture with us though. Seemed like a really cool dude. I met a local celebrity I grew up watching on local television. Forgot his name, but he was a cowboy and hosted a kids show in my city. Anyway, around 12, I was at an event he was hosting and he was giving out prizes from the stage for kids with certain birthdays and I won. I was so excited to see him. I remember going up to the stage to get my prize and as he handed it to me I said something like, "Wow, it's so nice to meet you. I grew up watching you," and he cut me off. "Yeah, thanks kid." Took me by the shoulder and turned me around to exit the stage. Real bummed. Totally was buckshot. That was a by Grabthar's hammer. What a savings moment. Bam Margera, hands down. It was actually the 3rd time I had met him. Don't get me wrong. He was actually a totally cool guy every time. The 3rd time was like 3 months after Ryan Dunn had died. It was at a bar in the WC. He was sitting at the bar by himself. 3 of us went up to him and said hi and just expressed regret for his loss. We asked him if we could buy him a drink. He said yes. Told us he had no idea what to do. Like no idea at all. After some backpats and some hang-in-theres we left him alone because he seemed to want to just be by himself. It was kind of heartbreaking. Frankie Muniz was a friend of my stepsister's and he came over my dad's old house. I was like 10 or 11 and I knew him from Malcolm in the Middle and tried to act cool by just playing on my computer in the other room. I didn't even go up to introduce myself. Hahaha. I saw Nicolas Cage at a restaurant when I was 7. I tried to take a picture of him discreetly and the flash went off. He and his posse immediately got up and left. I worked as an assistant manager at a Borders Books and Music. Stephen King came in for a book signing that day, a book called From a Book 8. It was a Saturday and the store was a mob scene, so I didn't get to see him during the signing. I worked at the music counter, and what boarders used to do was allow customers to come up to the music station. They could bring us a CD or two, and we had these big headphones with chairs so people could sit and listen to a CD before buying it. It's probably an hour or so before the store closed, and I turn around to see Stephen King standing there asking me if he could listen to some tunes. Of course I obliged. He sat there and listened to music until well after the store closed. He was really animated listening, which I found to be odd, but funny. I didn't have the heart to tell him the store closed at 10 o'clock. So, it gets to about 10:20 or 10:30 and he still doesn't realize the store is empty, all the while I'm pretending to work just to avoid making it awkward. The only other closing manager was a friend of mine who ran the coffee shop in the store. He comes over to me and tells me he's taking off for the night, and sort of all at once realizes what is going on. At any rate, Stephen King saw him out of the corner of his eye, which was enough for him to realize, oh crap, the store is empty. He took his headphones off, laughed, and apologized for getting too deep into the groove. I told him it was no big deal, that he was one of my favorite authors, and that I would have kept letting him listen. We were just small talking, and King says to Justin, the other manager, you work here too? And Justin replied, yeah, I run the coffee bar. To which Stephen King said, is it too late for a coffee? Justin says, absolutely not, I'll go brew a fresh pot. The three of us sat in a dimly lit Borders cafe drinking coffee for just about an hour, shooting the crap about everything from local politics, to the Red Sox, to King's work, to our families, etc. It was an amazing experience that I'll never forget. TLDR. Had an unexpected extended coffee visit with Stephen King years ago. Was awesome. Met Vince Vaughn in a bar in Hollywood. He was with his entourage or whatever, and had quite a few drinks. He hit on a girl friend of mine, and I was amazed to see her totally blow him off. Not that she should have gone for it, but it was pretty incredible to see a multimillionaire movie star get rejected by an accountant. I used the term blow him off as it is used in the US, which means to reject someone's advances without giving it a second thought. So, yes, she rejected VV, and knew full well who he was and all that. Should probably add that she wasn't exactly the most selective person when it comes to hooking up with guys. No judgment here, but that just made the whole thing even more amusing. Accountants have a sixth sense about people who are irresponsible with money. As a kid I saw Michael Jordan on a golf range in Hawaii. My uncle and I were hitting in the space right next to him, so he was literally 5 feet away. I was going to say something but all these other people started walking up to him and he just put his hand up as if to say not now. So I never bothered him. We did see Charles Barkley later and he had a whole crowd of people around him and he said Michael's pee today because I kicked his butt on the golf course. At least that's what he said. Yes, I realize Charles Barkley is horrible at golf. We've all seen his swing. And I know MJ is very good. Hence the at least that's what he said line. Of course Charles isn't going to bet him unless he gets an agreed upon handicap. People have good days and people have bad days. It seemed like MJ just had a bad day and or Charles had a good day. For him. That or Charles was just messing with everyone. Which is totally possible. With the way Chuck swings the golf club I don't blame him for being P. Besides it's MJ, he probably would have said something that would have ruined your childhood. I was on vacation with the family in Hawaii when I was little. While in the pool, I see Pauly Shore walking through knee-deep water with nothing but a red speedo on and visibly hammered. He is carrying some Hawaiian girl in his arms. He walks right past me and I state, hey, you're Pauly Shore. My first celebrity encounter. I was young. He looks at me with drunk googly eyes and says I am. Oh yeah, whatever, man. That's the best way I can picture an encounter with him going. Met Samuel L. Jackson at a celebrity golf pro-am. Shook his hand after I found his ball in the rough and asked him to sign my wallet, the one that says bad mother sucker I'd bought off eBay since I love Pulp Fiction so much. Had the marker and all. He just said no chance. That feeling of disappointment will be forever with me. Come to think of it, the same day he was sitting on one of the tee boxes waiting to tee off, a little girl ran under the spectator rope. He saw her coming from say 40 yards away, raised his hand and pointed at her, and security ran over and removed her back to her parents. This is very disappointing. Of all the autographs, you think he'd be most happy to sign this one. My family has a long history of having a yearly reunion every year at a certain 5-star resort in Florida, and this particular resort has an extensive, really nice breakfast buffet that's free for certain guest packages. We would be allowed to eat for free since we had rented out an entire wing of the hotel for 3 weeks every March for almost half a century at this point, so we would obviously take advantage of it every day. One of these mornings, when I was about 8, my dad and I noticed Bob Vila sitting in the dining room. My dad and I had watched this old house every Saturday for my entire childhood, so obviously it was very special to us, and Bob Vila was a big deal for me. We went over and my dad said something along the lines of, "My son and I are big fans of this old house, and I want to thank you for helping me bond with my son." Bob Vila replied, through a mouthful of waffles, "Go frick yourselves. I'm trying to eat here." So that's why Tim the Toolman Taylor hates Bob. I was in the seafood section of a massive Tesco, and the fat chuckle brother asked me to hand him some cod fillets. I did. He looked at the price, exhaled and put it back down, shaking his head. It was not an expensive piece of fish. I used to go to a small gym. The owners were laid back and had their cats roam around all the time. It was never an issue and people who went regularly would pet them in between sets. My husband and I go to the gym one day. We're the only ones there aside from a trainer in the corner with someone. My husband, a very observant man, tells me to go do some kettlebell swings. I thought it was weird but headed over to the kettlebell section. There is the trainer with Ben Affleck, training for Batman. I didn't want to disturb him, so I completely ignored him. Except it's a small gym. So I'm working out on the bench next to nice guy Ben, and I can feel him trying to acknowledge me. Suddenly I notice one of the cats starts to pee in the corner next to Ben. I shout no to stop the cat, and scoop him up. Ben turns to me and says, "Hey, is that your cat?" Clearly trying to start conversation. I look at him and awkwardly say it's not my cat and walk away. I had an opportunity to talk to Batman and instead became the crazy cat lady. My husband was watching from afar, dying laughing. Now whenever I do something awkward my husband will scream it's not my cat. I was working on an upcoming Matthew McConaughey movie as a locations assistant. One of my various tasks were cleaning crew toilets. Film school totally paid off, guys. So I'm walking out of the unit I just cleaned, gloves covered in everything unholy, and McConaughey walks off set to me. All I could get out was a grunt and a nod. He stopped in front of me, still fully in character, and just grunted and nodded back. Glad I didn't try to shake the guy's hand. Not too weird I guess, but it made me think. Do actors who stay in character take a crap still in character? These will be the questions that haunt me. Sid Caesar, groundbreaker of comedy, your show of shows, incredibly talented and funny man, and I'm a fan of comedy to begin with. On the one hand, I was really excited to see him. On the other hand, it was at the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington DC and he was crying terribly while a small group of elderly women were crowded around him. It broke my heart to see him so upset and for these women to not give a crap. The teenage hero in me told them all off and demanded they give this man the quiet and respect he needs. But the real me just kind of made a mental note and filed it away for 30 plus years. I met the oldest son from Home Improvement in a bar. He went on for over an hour about how hard his life was now that he wasn't in the show and JTT had all the success. He then tried to pick up my girlfriend. It was sad in so many ways. I went to school with someone who wasn't a celebrity at the time who had celebrity parents. She had your typical teenage celebrity crush on an actor. Her mom started dating him and she got upset and shaved her head. Probably when I met Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick. I go to the grocery store late at night and get in the checkout line and see them. We were the only people in the store. They were arguing about something, so I didn't say hi and just awkwardly stared instead. I work for an airline, so I see some celebs from time to time. One time Tom Cruise cussed me out because I wouldn't violate federal law and bring his checked bags to him plainside. Made him go to baggage claim like everyone else. He was coming off the plane and was told to pick his bag up plane side. For whatever reason there was no plane side tag marking his bag as such. I explained to him the whole deal with it. He turned red, frowned and stormed off mumbling curses under his breath. Trying to explain his bag would make it there before he did, and the way my airport is shaped, he had to go right by the carousel anyways. You suppressive person. You. I became interested in evolution and physical anthropology in high school after exploring the topic in books and discovered Richard Dawkins. I was in the process of reading another of his recent books when I found out he was doing a signing in the city. So I went to his talk and waiting in line to get an autograph. All through the Q&A session, people had great complex questions for him about his theories and ideas on evolution or certain species. I thought I would be clever and ask a simple and fun question. So in the cover of the book, I wrote, "What is your favorite animal?" I expected this to be refreshing when he went to sign my book. I got to the front and as he opened my book to sign it, he was a little thrown off. He gave me a look like I was mentally impaired and just signed his name. I was crushed and felt really embarrassed that my recent idol thought I was stupid. I wandered off through the racks of books and found a small group of 5 people huddled around one man speaking. I was curious and still trying to forget my last encounter, so I listened to this energetic man speak about the universe to this impromptu gathering. He was very knowledgeable and interactive. When I got a chance I asked him the same question. "What's your favorite animal?" He was very happy with the question and went on a long explanation of why the wolf was his favorite and when he first encountered one in Yellowstone. I learned later that man was Neil deGrasse Tyson. What a day. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.